Welcome back. This is Morning Live, coming to you live from Johannesburg. Thank you so much for staying with us. Now, as you can see, our set is beautifully decorated with flowers and hose pipes, just to give it that spring cheer. As you know, it is spring, and this week is actually a special week. Firstly, Heritage Day is on Saturday, and we can all indulge ourselves and understand the different cultures in our beautiful country. Also, this week is the lead up to the spring equinox. This means that it is officially spring in the Southern Hemisphere, and to give some spring color to our new set, Garden Master has offered to give it a happy cheer for the rest of the week. So from the 22nd, you can expect days to become longer and nights a little shorter. Many thanks to Garden Master. Now back to our guest this morning. As you know, tertiary education, like healthcare, is a basic service which should be free and not treated as a commodity. And that's a view taken by South African tertiary students. From the images we see, it looks like the country is not in a good place. Now, this follows an announcement by the Department of Higher Education to hike the fees by up to 8% in the coming year. This comes after the country learned that South Africa's institutions have dropped in the global QS ratings due to international perceptions. Now, joining me in studio is Professor Ahmed Bawa. He is the CEO of University South Africa, a representative body of South Africa's public universities. A very good morning to you, Professor. Thank you so much for joining us. Now, first of all, before we go on with this interview, is the minister's decision to hike universities' fees by up to 8% good news or bad news for South African universities?
It's mixed news, let's put it that way. I think we have to understand that, we're caught in a sort of interregnum, right? Because, there's a whole lot of national processes that are underway at the moment, the Presidential Commission and so on, which will produce something at the end. And they're aiming to produce a report by the end of June next year. So I think the minister's statement is really something to help us to get between now and that point where we'll have a much more final decision about how to handle the fees. So from the university's point of view, it does two things. It supports the poorest of the poor students, and it supports the missing middle with the 8% increase, if you like.
Yes.
And the other thing is that, of course, the universities are in dire circumstances, so the 8% increase will allow most of our universities to enter 2017 on a fairly secure financial footing. That doesn't mean that there won't be cuts and so on.
Right.
But the 8%, if it had it been 6%, then there would have been a very difficult situation for our universities.
Right. Now, what is the role of University South Africa in this?
Universities SA is an umbrella body of the 26 structures, 26 universities. And we are a member-based university, so universities, all 26 universities affiliate to Universities SA. And Universities SA is sort of like the voice of the higher education sector. And it tries to kind of produce consensus positions between the universities and so on. Yeah.
Sure. Now, your organization aims to advocate and campaign for adequately funded university sector and also promote a more inclusive and equitable national system for higher education. How do you do that?
Well, we do that through a number of means. I mean, we have a whole range of strategy groups which help us to produce policy options, which we then take to the government. For example, we have a very large project on the funding of higher education, not just the student fees part, but the entire funding. Another example would be we have a transformation strategy group. One of its big projects at the moment is developing something that we call the transformation barometer, which will allow us to measure how universities are doing. So it has a number of projects like that, which kind of feed back into the universities and which allow us to engage government and parliament and so on.
And one of your chief mandates is to sort of contribute and influence policy regarding higher education. So is the government likely to come up with a clear policy direction with regards to tertiary funding, and what are the considerations at this stage?
Yeah, well, if we are talking about student fees at the moment, we are hoping that with the outcomes of the Presidential Commission, which will be in June, July next year, that there will be a very clear path forward, that we'll know exactly what the situation is. And I have to tell you that there is a desperate need for a level of stability of funding, because universities plan 5 years down the line. I mean, just to give you an example, if you're purchasing equipment, quite often it's a 5-year program of purchasing. Usually it's not possible to buy just one piece of equipment in one go, that you buy it over a period of time. So stability in funding is a critical issue for the proper functioning of universities. And if that doesn't happen, then universities, find it difficult to plan and develop long-term strategies and so on.
And Professor, having said that, I mean, at this stage, the institutions maintain that free education is currently not feasible at this stage, while students refuse to be moved from their demand. So what is being done to promote or to engage the students in this, to give a more common understanding?
There are engagements going on at every campus. Let me just clarify. I mean, the universities are not saying that fee-free education is not possible. What the universities are saying is that if you remove the fee portion of the funding of universities, that you have to find a way of filling that gap. Whether it's with extra taxes or whether it's kind of donations from the private sector or whatever it is. Somehow you have to make up the total budget. The fee component of the total funding of universities is something like 30 to 40%.
Yeah.
So somehow that has to be, So what we are saying is that this current statement that has been made by the minister is perfectly okay as an interim step between now and when the Presidential Commission makes its findings.
Now, South Korea has been lauded for having moved from high levels of illiteracy to one of the best educated in the world. I mean, this also happens to be one of the states we happen to be modeling our country after as a development state. How far are we there?
We've got a long way to go.
Is it?
Yeah, and largely it's got to do with the fact that, that they emphasized very heavily the excellence at the basic education level.
Yeah.
Whereas we still have a very, very disparate, very, very unequal education system at primary and secondary levels.
Okay.
The second issue, of course, is just the investment in higher education. The investment in higher education is much higher than ours. We are operating at about between 0.5 and 0.6% of GDP as the state expenditure on higher education. Whereas in Korea, that figure is well over 1%. It's a huge difference in...
So we're still far off, you say?
We're far off, but I have to tell you that our higher education system really does punch way above its weight. We do well in a number of areas. If you take engineering, for example, in all of our engineering qualifications in South Africa are globally recognized. Students don't have to go somewhere else and redo courses and so on.
Absolutely.
So our education system, I think we should be proud of it. I think it does well. I mean, there are areas in which we can improve, of course. In particular, I think that we should be concerned about the issues around the throughput rate, the the dropout rate, and so on. Those are things that we have to deal with.
Professor, I'm afraid I have to end it there, but I wish we had more time. This is a very, very pertinent issue. But then, thank you so much for joining us. It's been great chatting to you. That is Professor Bawa from the University of South Africa speaking to us about the current situation regarding our tertiary education in our country. Well.